Well, to discuss this further, Ambassador Anil Trigunath is joining us. He's a distinguished fellow, WIF, and has served in Indian missions across several nations. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. He's also served as Director General, Joint Secretary for the Gulf and Hajj divisions in the Ministry of External Affairs in India, joining us from New Delhi. Pleasure to have you here with me, Mr. Trigunath. Now, sir, the tensions peaked between the two sides, but within hours of the attacks, Hezbollah said its military operation had finished for the day and Israel reopened Ben Gurion International Airport near Tel Aviv. Do you feel that a larger war has been averted to a certain degree at this point?
No, I don't think so. In fact, we'll continue to see these spurts off and on because the fundamental issue, which is the current ongoing Hamas war, the killing of the senior leaders by the IDF, and the problems that are continuing in the region are the basic issues that if they are not addressed, it will be very difficult to somehow do that. I think that this is also, apart from conveying a message that it was a revenge by them for Fuad Shuk's killing or Ismail Haniyeh's killing, but it is also in order to continue to maintain the pressure on the international community with regard to the ceasefire talks that are going on in Cairo simultaneously, and in which it appears that, again, it's going to be rather elusive. So I think that these are all tactics that are being deployed by both sides. Israel started this morning, as you know, at 5 o'clock, 100 fighter jets went in a preemptive strike and bombed various southern Lebanon positions of Hezbollah and others. And then Hezbollah reacted, which is going to do. It's also a strong army or a force with which currently the whole world is worried that this escalation can go anyway. So this is something that I think that people have to believe. But I think for the time being, it may have died down for a day or two. But once again, we'll continue to see. We have seen it in the past 10 months that all the three H's, Hezbollah, Hamas, and Houthis, have continued to operate. Earlier, it was a low-key, but with the killing of their own leaders, I think that they have come in the open. And of course, Iran currently is having this strategic patience or silence for the time being, but has all its 3 or 4 H, as they call the Hezbollah, Hamas, and Houthis proxies take action on its behalf, which is also continuing to maintain pressure on Israel.
So tensions remain on the boil, Ambassador, as you mentioned, and you also mentioned the ceasefire deal, which is still ongoing in Cairo. It's progressing as planned. Now, in spite of the high-intensity strikes and preemptive strikes, the ceasefire talks are still being held in Cairo as planned. Now, with the US pressing Israel to show support for the talks, so what are the prospects of ceasefire talks at this point? You also mentioned that Hezbollah is perhaps trying to maintain pressure as the talks are scheduled to take place. Give us a better understanding of how you are seeing these ceasefire talks emerging from here.
Well, unfortunately, in these ceasefire talks, what we have seen is even though the US has tried its best, I would say, to a great extent, trying to have some kind of a ceasefire and return of the hostages, the fact it has not been able to put adequate pressure on Israel, which has continued to change the goalposts, or for that matter, its allies like Egypt and Qatar on the Hamas leadership to essentially come to the table and agree to the thing that they have already agreed to. In fact, this deal, which has been agreed by both sides, had been put, but then they continue to change the goalposts. So that's the problem. Today, now there is a problem that Israel wants to maintain its presence at the Philadelphia corridor in order to maintain its vigilance and control. On the other hand, it says that the second option is that you create 8 watchtowers and which should be manned by that. So this is a very major issue that I don't see that either Hamas or Israel are prepared or are genuinely ready for the ceasefire. They'll continue to find fault with one another because they will continue to change the goalposts. And therefore, this kind of a situation is very unlikely to be resolved overnight. But I hope that good sense prevails and some kind of a ceasefire for those poor hostages is reached.
Ambassador, at this point, the fact that the ceasefire talks are still progressing as planned, that is at least a ray of hope. But as you are understanding the matter, you're not expecting this to get resolved within a day. But of course, the fact that the ceasefire talks are happening means that there are steps being taken in that direction. Thank you so much for joining us. That was Ambassador Anil Trigunath joining us from New Delhi, sharing all his insights.
Thank you, sir.